What's up guys, my name is Ace, and a question I've been getting a lot over the past several months actually is, why am I not playing Warzone anymore? Why am I not covering Warzone anymore? And therefore I wanted to make this video just sort of addressing this general topic and letting you guys know why I haven't really been into Warzone at all lately, and while I check in on it from time to time, I have very little interest in the game. Before we get into the reasons though, I feel like I need a few disclaimers just so people don't get this twisted. First up, I don't hate Warzone, not even a little bit. I don't hate the game at all, and I feel like they've also been making a ton of amazing improvements and quality of life changes, especially over the past 3 or 4 months in the game. And I definitely want to give credit where credit is due there. They have been doing a great job with supporting the game, especially recently. Now, unfortunately for me, many of these changes, they don't address my primary concerns with the game, and therefore they're not enough to really bring me back and hook me long term. But it is nice to see that it seems like they've really turned things around when it comes to community support. So this really isn't even meant to be a complaint video. I'm not here demanding changes or anything like that. I mainly just want to use this video to share my perspective and sort of what I went through with Warzone and some of the primary reasons for me no longer playing the game, to perhaps provide a little bit of insight, and maybe some of you guys can relate to this as well. Also, one final note before we get into my reasons. Just because I'm making this video, it doesn't mean that I'm done with Warzone forever. I always try to check in every time there's a major update. That's why you see some Fortunes Keep gameplay in the background. I wanted to check out the new map. And hopefully one day that spark will be reignited for me when it comes to Warzone, or maybe Warzone 2. It's just not there currently, and it hasn't been for a very long time for me. And with all that out of the way, let's dive right into my issues. And I'm actually going to start it off with probably my biggest issue currently. And one of the biggest reasons I don't really play Warzone anymore is I feel like there's nothing to work toward in the game long term, aside from getting better at the game, which you don't really see the results of directly in your gameplay performance due to the matchmaking system that they use. So therefore, anytime I think about maybe hopping in and trying to play some Warzone for a change of pace, a big part of me just thinks, what's the point? What am I working toward when I do that? I just feel like there's nothing to be gained on a game-to-game basis. I'm not really working toward progressing anything or unlocking anything, or at least anything meaningful, I should say. And even when it comes to getting wins in the game, there's no reward for getting a win. You just see a victory screen pop up and that's it. And for me, I often like having something to show for my play session that I just put in. If I put some hours into a game, I'd like for those hours to mean something. I'd like to earn something in the game within those hours, like an in-game currency, for instance. And this is something I've kind of been pushing for when we're talking about COD 2.0 and the next Call of Duty game and everything. But this also relates to other popular battle royales like Apex Legends, for instance. Now, I don't play a ton of Apex Legends, so I don't know how things have changed over time, but I do remember they have those legend tokens, which you get just by playing the game. Win or lose, doesn't matter. If you just put the time in and you play some matches of Apex Legends, you're going to accumulate these legend tokens, which you can use to immediately unlock brand new legends as they're added to the game. If Warzone had something like this that allowed you to immediately unlock a new gun the moment it's added to a season, rather than having to grind a battle pass, or worse yet, do those ridiculously tedious challenges where you have to play 15 matches doing some sort of really menial, stupid task. If we could just bank this currency over time with our playtime, and then the moment a new weapon is added, we can just get it immediately, I think that would be incredible, and that would make it worthwhile to hop on and put a few hours into the game, and I wouldn't feel as though I've just wasted my time and not really earned anything for the time I put in. Additionally, on this topic of feeling like there's not much to really grind for, especially long term, there's still no ranked mode in Warzone, and that's something that definitely could have kept me sticking around and playing Warzone for longer if I had something to grind for. When I can log in and maybe I'm trying to reach that next skill division or something, that's the type of thing that gets me motivated to log on and play the game. And that's just something that has never existed with Warzone, and it doesn't look like it's coming anytime in the near future either. Now, on top of all of that, when you look at the player level, this is meaningless. I've talked about this a lot when it comes to the multiplayer side of things, but even on the Warzone side, since it's all shared progression, I really have no motivation or incentive to increase my player level when it's just going to get reset for the next season. I don't care about double XP anymore. I don't care what level I reach in a season before it gets reset. It has become completely meaningless to me, which again takes another layer of grind away from the game where I don't feel like I'm earning anything meaningful with my time played. I might be leveling up, but I don't care about that level. So all of that there falls into that general category of feeling like there's nothing to grind for and the time that I'm putting in isn't really being rewarded in any way. And I am the type of player in video games where I always like chasing or working towards something. Every time I put some hours into a game, I'd like something to show for that time that I put in. I'd like feeling like, yeah, I did something there. And in Warzone, I just don't get that feeling at all. And I realize not everybody has that same mindset, and that's totally fine. I just know that for myself and many other gamers out there, it's hard for us to just play a game for the sake of playing a game or just for the enjoyment of the experience at the time. I like earning things. I like leveling things up. I like working towards something. And Warzone simply doesn't offer that for me at all. As for the next sort of broad topic that I feel has really pushed me away from Warzone more and more as years have gone on, this is the fact that things have become overly complex when it comes to weapons and attachments over time. When Warzone first launched, where it was just Modern Warfare weapons and attachments, things were great. They were relatively simple, although there was enough depth there that you could really get that depth if you were looking for it. But as somebody that would maybe just want to dabble with the game a couple times a week or something, it wasn't overwhelming, whereas currently, I just had a look at this, we have 130 primary weapons in the game right now, and that's not even including all the conversions that can be made with various attachments on these guns. And to me, that is so far beyond bloated at this point. Like, even 60 guns, I feel like, is overwhelming, and we've got more than double that at this point. And to top all of that off, we also have very inconsistent attachments from game to game with all the different integrations they've had. So Modern Warfare attachments, Cold War attachments, and Vanguard attachments, they're all very different in how they perform. And then with those attachments, even if you are focusing on the attachment from a single game, they don't necessarily work the same across multiple classes of weapons either. And that is another thing that's heavily contributed to that feeling of things being way too overwhelmingly complex. When you also combine that with the really frequent weapon balancing changes that are being made, which, to be fair, like, I like a good weapon balancing change, but when you have so many weapons and attachments in this pool, when you're constantly tweaking all of these things, it feels impossible as somebody that just has a casual interest in the game. It feels almost impossible to keep up with what's currently good. And another thing I notice is there's almost always something in the game that is broken or overpowered, like the tape grip last week. That was allowing people to have ridiculous movement speeds where it almost looked like they were teleporting, they're moving so fast. Or right now, I've been seeing some clips on Twitter, apparently the new LMG with the burst barrel is literally just untouchable at really long ranges because it's a complete laser beam that deals a ton of damage. And it just feels like there's always something like that going on where if you don't know about that and if you don't conform to that, you're going to end up subjecting yourself to a lot of frustration against the people that do know all of this stuff. And while I feel loadout choices should be a part of the skill gap to some degree, like somebody that does keep up with that and has that extra knowledge and interest in the game, they should have some advantage. I feel like that advantage is often way too high to the point where in-game skill isn't nearly as relevant as just understanding what the best gun and attachment combination is in that current moment. For the more casual players that just want to dabble with the game from time to time, especially those that are naturally competent Call of Duty players that end up in higher skill lobbies against people that grind the game 8 hours a day, the thought of hopping on and playing the game from time to time isn't appealing at all. So that's the second big reason that I stopped playing Warzone and I no longer really engage with it that much. Although I might have been interested in the game, I wasn't interested enough anymore to keep up with all of this overcomplexity with the game. And so far, up to this point in the video, those are the primary reasons I don't play Warzone anymore. I'd say those are the big two reasons. The feeling of nothing to grind for on a game-to-game basis, and the overly complex weapon and attachment pool. Now, on top of that, though, there's still a handful of miscellaneous little things that I feel really contributed to pushing me away from Warzone and are currently keeping me away from engaging with Warzone as much as I otherwise would like to. The first one on this list is the cheating situation. I think I really started burning out in Warzone right around the time the Cold War integration happened, and it wasn't anything to do with the content in the game. I just feel like by that point, the cheating situation started to get completely out of control. And it got to the point where I felt like I was just wasting my time playing the game. I'd invest 15 minutes into a match, I'd play everything flawlessly, I'd be having a great game, and then I'd get killed by an obvious aimbotter and wall hacker that I realistically couldn't have competed against whatsoever, and that just made me feel like I completely wasted that time playing the game, and that's frustrating to me. That's obviously something that's going to be pushing players away, and that really contributed to pushing me out of the game. Now, of course, we now have the Ricochet anti-cheat in the game, and from what I've been seeing, I tend to keep a finger on the pulse of things on Twitter. It seems like Ricochet anti-cheat has actually been quite successful, and it's really cut down on the cheaters. Not completely eliminated, of course, but that's to be expected. At the very least, it seems like it's been cut down significantly, but I feel like those old scars are still there, and there's always still that little bit of doubt in the back of my head when I get into a match now as to whether or not I'm going to run into a cheater in the game. Additionally, another one of these miscellaneous reasons that sort of pushed me out of the game, I just felt like the solo experience was never really a priority for them. It seems like the game was always designed around trios or quads or duos, and that's totally fine. It seems like those are the more popular modes in the game, but for someone like me, I tend to prefer a solo experience where I only have to rely on myself. I don't have to have good comms, I don't have to rely on what other people are doing in the game, I just have to focus on myself. And as much as I enjoy from time to time joining up with other content creators or some friends or something to play the game, I would generally prefer playing solo. And yet, I just feel like the solo Warzone experience, at least back at the time when I really started fading out of Warzone, it always felt like it was neglected and it just didn't get enough attention compared to these squad-based modes. Now, perhaps that's yet another area where they have made improvements over time, so that may no longer be a valid complaint, but this is a video with me just explaining why I basically quit playing Warzone, and that was one of the reasons. The solo experience was not very fun for me. Now, on top of all that, there is another reason I wanted to bring up in this video, and it doesn't even directly relate to just Warzone. I honestly feel one of the reasons I stopped playing Warzone is I just got burnt out on the Battle Royale genre as a whole. That general gameplay loop of dropping into a map with a bunch of other players, looting up, killing players as it shrinks and trying to be the last man standing, that was extremely fun and exciting for me in the early years of Battle Royales blowing up in popularity. So back in the early days of like H1Z1 and Fortnite and Blackout, and even the first good number of months of Warzone as well, it was still fresh and exciting as a genre for me. And I feel like I've just been burning out on that genre as a whole, and it's gotten to the point where I just feel stressed when I play a Battle Royale game, and I don't really want to get myself stressed out when I play video games. I'd much rather just chill and play a multiplayer experience where if I die, I just hit the respawn button and I'm back in the action, and it's more about consistent performance over time rather than being all in for that match. And I know that's the big draw to Battle Royale, and I know not all of you feel the same way about this. But to be completely honest, this is one of the things that's been pushing me away from Warzone. It's just a general burnout from the Battle Royale genre, and I can't blame Warzone for it at all. But finally, there's one last note that I want to make here, and it's something that you've heard me touch on a couple times throughout this video, but I just wanted to reiterate this as well, because this definitely accelerated my burnout with Warzone. This is the matchmaking system they use. I'm somebody that's generally pretty competent at winning their gunfights, and I do consider myself to be a noticeably above average Call of Duty player. And therefore, with the way the matchmaking works, even if I just want to hop on and try Warzone once or twice a week, or maybe even only like once a month, I feel like I get a couple great games where I have a ton of fun, but then it immediately bumps me up into these lobbies against people that are apparently playing the game day in, day out. They know every little nook and cranny of the map. They know all the weapon stats and everything. And therefore, when I'm playing in those lobbies, it feels like I'm playing for money or something. And that's not the experience I'm looking for. I want to play the game fairly casually. I'm not interested enough in Warzone to get back into figuring out all those little details. I'm not trying to play within the top 5% of players. But with this matchmaking system, it feels as though that's how the game wants me to play. And therefore, again, I just disengage from the game because I'm not that interested in playing at that level. Especially when there's no skill rank to be grinding for. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind getting outplayed by a better player. I don't mind running into tough lobbies, and I don't expect to be the top dog in every single lobby I'm in. It's just that the general strength of the matchmaking seems to be dialed up too much to the point where my interest in the game doesn't match where that matchmaking is trying to place me. I have zero interest in grinding Warzone day in, day out. So when I'm consistently put in lobbies full of people that are doing that, That's yet another thing that just causes me to disengage with the game entirely. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video, just sharing some of the primary reasons for me no longer having interest in playing and covering Warzone. Like I said, this doesn't necessarily mean I'm never touching the game again. I'm still going to come back to it from time to time. Maybe I'll try giving Fortune's Keep a little bit more attention, and we'll see how that plays out, because I actually do kind of like the map. I like it more than Rebirth. But those are all just my experiences and my thoughts surrounding Warzone. And I'm just really curious to hear if you guys can relate to anything that I mentioned in this video. Do you feel like there's room for improvement in some of these areas, perhaps with Warzone 2? Or are you perfectly happy with how Warzone is right now and you're just happy to continue playing it? There's really no right or wrong answer here. It just comes down to personal experience, and I'd love to hear what your guys' experience is in those comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.